Monique moved through the boutique with practiced ease, her mind quietly reviewing the restocking list for the afternoon. The mall's warm lights cast a gentle glow over rows of colorful summer dresses and light blouses, and the soft hum of conversation blended with distant music. She paused to straighten a display of straw hats, running her fingers along the woven brims before sliding them back into perfect alignment. Her co-workers were busy elsewhere, and for a moment she enjoyed the calm of a normally bustling center of commerce. The air felt a little more crowded than usual. A sale on children's shoes in the main corridor drew families from every direction. Mothers pushed strollers, fathers carried bags, and children tugged at sleeves, pointing out candies in shop windows or toys on low shelves. The scent of popcorn from a nearby snack kiosk mixed with the faint smell of leather from an accessories store. Shoppers strolled past, lost in their own errands, some searching for the perfect gift, others grabbing a quick bite between purchases. Monique loved watching the ebb and flow of people in the mall. She'd grown up in this town and remembered coming here as a child, excited by the promise of new wares and the freedom of choosing a treat from the candy store. Now in her mid-30s, with a degree in social work firmly in her hand and a life plan unfolding, she had returned to help families facing challenges similar to her own past. Her current retail job paid the bills while she volunteered at a community center in the evenings, offering support to single parents and children in need. She reached for another stack of bright sandals and felt a sudden shift in her attention. A small figure scuttled past the edge of her vision. A boy, no older than 5 or 6, wearing a bright red t-shirt and matching red sneakers, paused a few feet away and glanced around. His eyes grew wide, and he ducked behind a marble pillar, near the entrance to a toy store. Monique's heart clenched at the sight of him standing alone in the crowded corridor. He looked frightened. His cheeks were damp, and he hugged his arms around himself as if seeking comfort. The boy peeked out, scanning faces as if expecting to see someone familiar. The laughter of other children playing tag in the distance sounded jarring next to his anxious stillness. Monique dropped the sandals onto the shelf, the soft thud barely audible over the mall's gentle chaos, and walked toward him, her steps calm but purposeful. She knelt to lower herself to his height and offered her hand. "Hey there," she said softly, her voice steady and warm. "Are you okay?" The boy flinched as though uncertain whether to trust her, but he didn't run away. Monique kept her posture open and relaxed, making sure she didn't tower over him. She unbuttoned her jacket and folded it over her arm, showing her identity badge clipped to her blouse. It bore her name, Monique Harper, and the name of the boutique. "My name is Monique," she added. "What's yours?" She frowned slightly with concern when she saw him trembling, his small body wrapped in a protective loop of his arms. He swallowed, and after a moment of silent tears, he whispered, "Marcus." "Marcus," she repeated, smiling gently. "It's nice to meet you. Did you come here with your mom or dad?" She slid a careful question into the conversation, hoping to guide him toward answers without alarming him further. The boy shook his head. His voice barely rose above a whisper. I was with her, and then I couldn't find her." He dabbed at his eyes with the back of his hand. His words tumbled out in soft bursts, each one shadowed by fear. Monique reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a bottle of water. She offered it to him, and he accepted it with shaking fingers. "Thank you," he muttered, his voice faint as he sipped. After a moment, he handed it back. "Did you notice where you were before you lost her?" Monique asked, her tone friendly and matter-of-fact. She leaned in slightly so he could feel she was listening closely. The boy looked around, as if trying to rewind through the swirl of sights and sounds. He pointed toward a kiosk that sold toys and knickknacks. "We were there," he said. "But then she went to talk to someone, and I looked at the toys, and when I looked back..." His voice trailed off, and he glanced around again, near tears. Monique nodded. "It's okay, Marcus. We'll find her. You're safe with me." She scooched a little closer, creating a small bubble of calm in the midst of the busy hallway. She slipped her hand gently into his, letting him know she wasn't going anywhere. Together they walked toward the information desk, passing magnetic signs that pointed to the restrooms, the food court, and an ATM down the corridor. Monique kept her voice low and steady, pointing out each sign as they passed, so he felt part of the decision-making. On the way, she called mall security on her cell phone. "Yes, I have a lost child," she said, giving a clear description. "He's wearing a red shirt and red sneakers, about 5 years old. I'm at the boutique near the toy store." She repeated her location, then moved on before the boy heard too much of her side of the conversation. She wanted him to stay calm, not worried that anyone would take him away from her. They reached the desk, where a young security guard had already appeared at her side, clipboard in hand. "Hi there," the guard said kindly to Marcus, squatting down next to them. "I'm Officer James. What's your name?" The boy's face brightened slightly at the salutation, as though hearing the word officer made him feel protected. He answered softly, "Marcus." "Nice to meet you, Marcus," the guard said. "Your mom or dad will be here any second now. You're doing great." Monique gave the guard a small nod and moved slightly back, allowing him to take the lead. She watched him offer a lollipop from a small bowl on the counter and let Marcus pick one. The boy's lips curled into a tiny smile, and Monique felt a burst of relief. She stepped back a little further and spoke quietly into her phone again. "He's with security now. They're handling it." She clipped the phone shut and stood, upright, smoothing her hair back behind her ears. She glanced around and found a bench nearby. With a final smile to Officer James, she drifted over and sat, ready to step in if Marcus needed her again. Despite the mall's constant movement, the moment felt hushed. Shoppers continued their errands, seemingly unaware of the drama that had just played out. A mother pushed past, glancing down at her own child and adjusting a stroller. A businessman in a suit strode by, phone pressed to his ear, while a pair of teenagers laughed as they tried on novelty sunglasses. Monique let her gaze soften. She thought about her own childhood, how her mother once looked everywhere for her in a different shopping center, tears in her eyes when she couldn't find her. She remembered the gratitude she felt when a stranger stayed with her until her mother arrived. She squeezed her hands together in her lap, silently promising herself that she would always be that person for someone else in need. As she sat, she couldn't help but feel a rising sense of responsibility and compassion. It was in these ordinary moments, stocking shelves, straightening hats, simply noticing a small child alone, that small acts of kindness could make the biggest difference. Monique's heart lightened as she reflected on how a single glance, a gentle question, and a comforting word might turn a frightened child's tears into relief. Across the corridor, Marcus still sat with Officer James, twisting the wrapper of his lollipop and peering at each company logo that passed. Monique watched until she saw a tall man in a sharp suit hurrying toward them. The man's stride was confident, and his expression was one of mingled relief and worry. She knew right then that the boy's story was about to have another chapter. Yet in that calm pause, she felt the simple power of human connection, of two strangers coming together in a crowded place, so that fear and confusion could be replaced by safety and trust. Monique stood beside Marcus, her voice calm and gentle as she knelt once more to meet his eyes. She offered him a small smile and said, "Let's sit here for a moment, okay?" She guided him to a low bench near the information desk. He climbed up and sat at one end, his legs swinging. Monique settled a few steps away, careful not to crowd him, and watched as Officer James continued his questions. Marcus's lower lip trembled. Monique reached into her pocket and pulled out a brightly colored sticker sheet she happened to have from a recent community event. "Would you like some stickers?" she asked quietly. His eyes flicked toward the sheet, curiosity piqued. He nodded just once. Gently, Monique peeled off a smiling cartoon animal and handed it to him. That small act seemed to break the tension, and he pressed the sticker onto his shirt, smoothing it down with his thumb. As he focused on the sticker, Monique asked Officer James if she could join in asking a few questions. The guard nodded, stepping aside so Monique could kneel next to Marcus again. She folded her hands in her lap and leaned in. "Marcus," she said, "can you tell me the name of your mom's store? Or maybe something she was holding?" He sucked in a breath, thinking carefully. After a moment, he whispered, "She had a purple bag." Monique repeated his words softly. "A purple bag. That's helpful. And where did she keep it? Over her shoulder?" Marcus nodded, eyes warming as he realized someone was truly listening. Monique jotted down the detail in her notebook. Then, she asked another question. "Do you know where your dad was, or was it just Mom today?" Marcus's gaze dropped. "Just Mom," he said, voice small. A woman at the information counter gave Monique a sympathetic look and whispered, "He's handling it so well." Monique offered a brief smile in return. She stood and addressed Marcus again. "Let's look at some photos of lost children on their screens. Maybe your mom's picture is up there." She led him over, pointing out the digital board that scrolled pictures and names. He leaned forward, squinting. Monique tapped the screen gently, bringing up the latest entries. She explained, "These pictures are of children who need help finding their families." She flicked through until they saw a child who looked somewhat similar, but not quite. Marcus shook his head, disappointment crossing his face. Monique rubbed his shoulder reassuringly. "It's okay, we'll keep looking." Nearby, a passing shopper paused to offer help. A young woman in a bright green shirt approached and smiled at Marcus. "Hi there, Marcus. I'm Sarah. I'm happy to help you look for your mom." Marcus gave a shy nod. Monique thanked Sarah and asked if she would stay with Marcus while she checked the mall's map to find places where lost children are usually found. Sarah sat on the bench, showing Marcus her smartphone filled with family photos. He touched, the screen pointing out faces. Monique spread a folded paper map on the counter. She traced her finger along corridors, pointing out jewelry stores, restrooms, and the main entrance. "These are the places security will check next," she said. "Your mom might be there." She paused to let Marcus study the map. He mouthed, "The names of shops." Monique watched his brows knit in concentration. Just then, a security supervisor strode up, tablet in hand. "We've broadcast his description to all team members," he reported. "We're searching the north and south wings." Monique nodded gratefully. "Thank you. Marcus knows his mom went toward the food court. Should we check there next?" The supervisor tapped his tablet and replied, "Yes, we'll send an officer." He looked at Marcus and asked, "Sweetheart, can you show me where you last saw your mom on this map?" Marcus stood and pointed to a spot near the ice cream kiosk. Monique and the supervisor exchanged a glance. "That's our next stop," Monique said. She offered her hand and Marcus took it without hesitation. They walked together with Officer James and another guard following. Monique kept her voice light as they walked, pointing out a shop window display of toy cars. "Look, Marcus, those cars are just your size." Marcus's grip on her hand loosened as he admired the miniature vehicles in the glass. Monique smiled and let him linger for a moment. Then she said, "After we check the kiosk, we can get you a small treat." His eyes brightened. He loved ice cream. The tiny smile that crossed his face gave Monique hope that he was feeling safer. As they neared the food court, the ringing of plates and chatter of families grew loud. Monique motioned for them to step back from the busiest area and find a quieter corner. She crouched to Marcus's level again. "Hey, buddy, do you think your mom had strawberry or chocolate ice cream? That might help us find her." He giggled softly, then whispered, "Strawberry." Monique nodded and waved to a nearby vendor, pointing at the pink swirls in the display case. The vendor smiled and leaned over. "I can get one right away." She scooped a small cup for Marcus and handed it over. The boy's eyes widened as he tasted the treat. Monique stood back, watching him savor each spoonful. She turned to the guards and supervisor. "Thank you all for helping. Let's keep looking, but I'll stay with him until we find his mom." They agreed and fanned out. Monique knelt beside Marcus. "You're doing great," she told him. "I'm proud of you." He nodded, licking ice cream off his lips. A few shoppers offered smiles or nods as they passed. Some slowed to ask if everything was okay. Monique replied with a brief, "We're finding his mom," and they continued on. Minutes crawled by, yet Monique remained patient. She knew parents were usually frantic when their child went missing, but she also knew that calm, steady care helped children feel safe. She engaged Marcus in simple games, naming colors in the ceiling lights, counting footsteps to each doorway, anything to distract him from fear. Then Marcus suddenly froze. His spoon halted mid-air. He pointed across the court at a tall woman, scanning the crowd. Monique followed his gaze and saw a woman in a purple top, her face red from worry. The woman's eyes locked on Marcus and Monique. She hurried forward, arms outstretched. "Marcus," she called. The boy jumped down and dashed into her arms. Monique rose and watched silently as mother and son clung together. Tears flowed freely from the woman's eyes. Marcus giggled, trying to free himself for a moment, then hugged her tighter. Monique felt a warmth spread through her chest. The woman turned to Monique, voice shaking with gratitude. "Thank you," she said over and over. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Monique smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm just glad he's safe," she said. "That's all that matters." As Monique stepped away, she glanced back at Marcus and his mother. They walked off hand in hand, the purple bag swinging at the woman's side. Monique watched until they disappeared into the crowd. Then she drew a deep breath and headed back toward the boutique, her heart full from the small victory of kindness. 2. Monique stayed close by Marcus's side as the mall community sprang into action. The moment the information desk announced a lost child alert over the public address system, several shoppers paused mid-step. A woman pushing a stroller glanced around anxiously. A group of teenagers hanging out near a toy kiosk stopped laughing and leaned in to listen. Monique could see the worried glances directed at Marcus and herself, and she felt a surge of gratitude that people cared enough to help. Within seconds, a friendly-looking man in his early 30s wearing a polo shirt with the mall's logo hurried over carrying a stack of bright flyers. "I'm from customer service," he said, kneeling beside Marcus. "Mind if I hand these out?" He began distributing the flyers to passers-by. Each one bore a clear photo of Marcus, along with a brief note asking anyone who knew his mother's whereabouts to report immediately to the information desk. Shoppers took them readily, nodding as they read the details and promised to keep an eye out. Nearby, a group of security officers converged around the information kiosk. One officer stayed with Monique and Marcus, while the others fanned out through the mall's corridors. Their radios crackled softly as they reported their locations and observations. Monique watched them go, feeling reassured by their professionalism and rapid response. As the officers dispersed, one of them bent down and whispered to Marcus, "Your mom will be here soon, I just know it. Stay brave, buddy." Marcus managed a small smile, gripping the officer's hand for a moment before the guard rose to continue the search. Monique pulled a small token from her pocket, a bright green stress ball shaped like a starfish. She offered it to Marcus, who took it with interest, squeezing it between his fingers. She explained softly, "You can squeeze it when you feel scared. It might help you stay calm." His eyes lit up at the unusual toy. As he pressed the soft rubber between his palms, Monique felt relief that he had something to focus on besides his anxiety. She tucked the ball away for safekeeping, knowing it would be his little comfort until his mother returned. Every few moments, Monique's phone buzzed with text messages from her coworker, Jill, who had heard the announcement and come running. Jill found Monique near the bench and knelt beside her. "I'm so proud of you," Jill whispered. "Is there anything I can do?" Monique shook her head and smiled gratefully. "Thanks, Jill. Could you stay here with him? I need to check on security's progress." Jill nodded and offered Marcus a friendly wave. Monique glanced at Marcus and offered an encouraging wink before she stood and walked briskly toward the information desk. At the desk, the head of mall security, Mr. Patel, was reviewing the list of nearby stores and monitoring the CCTV feed on a bank of screens. Monique arrived just as he spoke into his radio. "Keep eyes on the ice cream kiosk in the north entrance. He was last seen there." She tapped on one of the screens showing the corridor outside the toy store, pointing out a small figure wearing red sneakers. "That's him," she said softly. Mr. Patel nodded. We have officers checking every entrance. We'll alert them to be extra vigilant. Monique asked if there were any shuttle vans or back exits the mother might have used by accident. Mr. Patel thumbed through a printed map. There's a service exit by the food court and a staff-only door near the children's play area, he said. We've posted an officer at each point. Monique exhaled. Thank you. It makes me feel better knowing you're covering all the exits. Mr. Patel gave her a reassuring smile. We won't let him leave the building without us knowing. You've done an excellent job staying calm and looking after him. She returned to the bench where Jill sat with Marcus, now engrossed in a small picture book Jill had found in her bag. Marcus sat cross-legged, turning pages and pointing at colorful illustrations. Monique crouched beside them. That's a great book, she said. Where did you find it? Marcus looked up shyly. Jill gave it to me, he said quietly. Jill nodded. I always carry a few books in my bag. You never know when you might need one. The two women exchanged a quick glance, both relieved to see Marcus smiling. Monique reached into her jacket one more time and pulled out a small notebook and pencil. Hey Marcus, would you like to draw a picture while we wait? You can draw me or Jill or even your mom. His face brightened at the idea. He took the pencil eagerly and began sketching curved lines on the blank page. Monique watched as the image slowly took shape, two stick figures holding hands, one taller than the other, both smiling. He colored in the taller figure's bag with purple crayon, then shaded the smaller figure's shoes red. Monique recognized the purple bag clue he'd given earlier and felt proud he remembered. As Marcus worked, Jill whispered to Monique, I can't believe how brave he is. Monique nodded. He's doing wonderfully, but I want to keep him distracted so he doesn't get too nervous. Jill patted her shoulder. You've been amazing. Monique smiled, but her gaze drifted toward the corridor entrance. Every person who passed by, she wondered if it might be his mother. She resisted the urge to stand up each time, reminding herself that she needed to stay with Marcus. Suddenly her phone buzzed again. It was a text from Mr. Patel. We've got a lead. A woman matching the description was seen near the fountain by the north wing. Monique's heart raced. She showed the text to Jill, then whispered, They think she's near the fountain. I'm going to check. Jill rose and smiled reassuringly at Marcus. I'll stay here, pal. Your mom will come soon, I promise. Marcus nodded, his eyes still on his drawing. Monique walked swiftly, keeping one ear on the radio chatter. Mall corridors stretched before her like branching paths. She hurried, past perfume counters, bright jewelry displays, and signage for the movie theater. The sound of water splashing ahead signaled she was close to the fountain area. A small crowd had gathered, including an older couple with shopping bags, looking concerned. A security officer stood nearby, speaking into his radio. Monique approached him. Hi, I'm Monique Harper. I've been with the child at the information desk. She pointed back toward the bench area. Is that the mother you found? The officer raised his hand, motioning to a woman standing a little distance away. She wore a purple bag across her shoulder and scanned the crowd anxiously. Monique felt her breath catch in her throat. That must be her, the officer said. He spoke into his radio. Lost child found. Mother located at North Fountain. The officer stepped back to let the woman through the crowd. Monique watched as the woman hurried forward, tears filling her eyes. She recognized the look of pure relief, of panic melting into joy as the woman spotted her son. Marcus dropped his crayon and ran toward her, arms wide. Monique felt her heart swell. Before stepping back and letting them reunite, she knelt and whispered, Go to your mom now, Marcus. She's here. He looked back, smiled, and dashed the last few feet. Watching them embrace, Monique felt a wave of warmth so strong it made her eyes sting. The mother clutched her son tightly, rocking him slightly, and spoke over and over, Thank you. Thank you. Monique rose and approached, but kept a respectful distance, giving them their moment. The mother looked up at Monique, tears in her eyes. I don't know how to repay you, she said softly. Monique shook her head. I'm just glad he's safe. As the mother scooped up her son, slinging the purple bag over one shoulder, Marcus reached back and waved at Monique. She waved cheerfully in return. Then they melted into the crowd, hand in hand, heading toward the main entrance. Monique stayed by the edge of the fountain until she saw them out of sight. Then she turned back toward the mall's heart, thinking about how kindness had brought perfect strangers together. In her mind, she replayed the community's quick response, the flyers, the security officers, the bystanders, all rallying around one lost child. She felt grateful to be part of something so powerful, and she knew she would always remember this day as a shining example of how people can come together when it matters most. Monique had just settled back onto a stool behind the boutique counter when she sensed someone watching her. The afternoon light through the mall's skylights glinted off the polished floor tiles, and the murmur of shoppers drifted in through the open doors. She was straightening a stack of folded shirts when she felt a presence just beyond her display. Glancing up, she saw a tall man with a confident stance standing a few feet away. His gaze was steady, appraising, almost respectful. He wore a tailored navy suit and carried himself with the quiet authority of someone used to being in charge. For a moment, Monique wondered if he was waiting for a fitting room, or perhaps interested in a sale item. Then she noticed the subtle relief in his eyes, as though he recognized her from earlier. He took a careful step forward, and Monique set aside the stack of shirts, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She offered him a polite smile. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice steady but curious. He returned her smile, his features relaxing. "You can," he said, voice calm and rich. "I believe you helped my son this afternoon." Monique's heart skipped a beat. She remembered the boy, red shirt, red sneakers, tears in his eyes, and all the worry that had swept through her chest when she first saw him alone. Now she realized, this must be his father. "I did," she replied, stepping around the counter to stand more directly in front of him. "I stayed with him until security arrived." She folded her hands neatly in front of her. The man nodded, his expression gentle. His eyes held gratitude, and Monique felt a warm glow of pride. "Thank you," he said simply. "I'm Oliver Beaumont." He reached into his suit jacket and produced a slim card, which he offered to her. She took it, noting the embossed letters, Beaumont Industries. Her gaze flicked back to his face, then to the card. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Beaumont," she answered, tucking the card into her apron pocket. He glanced around the boutique as though noting the details of her work environment. "I only caught sight of you from a distance. I didn't get a chance to properly thank you then." Monique shook her head. "No need," she said. "I'm just glad he was safe." She gestured toward the mall entrance. "Your son seemed fine once he had his mom." Oliver's shoulders dropped and he ran a hand through his hair. "Yes," he said quietly. He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I wasn't expecting what happened today. My son and I were here for a brief break between meetings. I thought he was by my side when I stepped away to make a phone call." He closed his eyes and exhaled. "I can't tell you how relieved I was to see him safe with you." Monique nodded sympathetically. She had seen that relief mirrored on so many faces over the years when she volunteered at the community center. "Kids can move so fast," she said gently. "They're curious. They explore everything." She thought of Marcus's wide-eyed look when he saw the display of toy cars. He was very brave. Oliver's lips curved into a small smile. "He is brave," he agreed, "and he was very lucky you were there." He looked around again, meeting her eyes. "I would like to offer you something, if you'll allow me." Monique's brow lifted in surprise. "I couldn't accept anything," she said honestly. "But I want to," he insisted softly. "Not because of what I am, but because of who you are." He paused as though weighing his next words. Then he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small leather-bound notebook. "I carry these with me," he explained. "I was going to ask you to lunch. I'd love to hear more about your work with families and children. I think there's much I could learn from you." Monique's pulse quickened at the invitation. A private lunch with a man of his stature was unexpected. She took a steadying breath. "That's very kind," she said, "but I don't know." She hesitated. "I'm not sure I'm the best company for someone with your busy schedule." He gave a soft laugh. "Please," he urged. "No business, I promise. Just a conversation. I'd like to thank you properly." His eyes were earnest, and Monique realized his gratitude was heartfelt. She felt a gentle tug at her curiosity. "All right," she agreed at last. "I can do lunch tomorrow." She checked her watch. "I'm free around noon." Oliver glanced at his own watch, then nodded. "Noon it is." He smiled, extending his hand. "Thank you again, Monique. I promise I'll make it worth your while." She shook his hand, noting how firm and confident his grip was. "I look forward to it," she said, and stepped back behind the counter. He paused, watching her begin to fold a garment, then turned and walked away, his stride confident and unfazed by the attention of passers-by. Monique watched him go, her mind racing. She felt a mix of excitement and nerves. She returned to her retail tasks, folding shirts and straightening displays, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Oliver Beaumont. She pictured his polite smile, the way he had held himself, the genuine relief he showed when he found his son safe. Customers came and went, but Monique hardly noticed them. She was replaying the conversation in her head. Should she have agreed to lunch? Was it appropriate, given the difference in their social standing? She reminded herself that he had not made it about his wealth or status. He simply wanted to say, "Thank you." By mid-afternoon, her shift ended. She clocked out and slipped on her jacket, grabbing her bag. As she walked toward the mall exit, she passed the information desk where Officer James and Jill gave her friendly waves. She waved back, her smile warmer than it had been all day. Outside, the sun shone brightly, and a light breeze ruffled the leaves of the street trees. Monique climbed into her car and sat for a moment, looking at the parking rows. She thought about how life sometimes brought people from very different worlds together through small acts of kindness. Helping a lost child had seemed like the simplest choice, but it had led to an invitation she never expected. She started the engine and drove home, mentally rehearsing what she might say at lunch. She decided she would talk about her social work goals and her hope to create a safe space for families. She wanted to ask Oliver about his own experiences, to understand how someone in his position saw the community's needs. As she pulled into her driveway, Monique felt a spark of anticipation. Tomorrow's lunch would be more than a meal. It could be the start of something meaningful. She stepped out of her car and headed inside, still holding that leather-bound notebook in her mind, eager to see where this unexpected friendship might lead. The next day, Monique stood in front of her small bedroom mirror, adjusting the collar of her light blue blouse. She had chosen something simple but neat, something that felt like her. She wasn't trying to impress anyone with style or money. She just wanted to be herself. Yet even with her calm nature, a flutter of nerves danced in her chest. She was about to have lunch with a man most people only read about in magazines or watched on TV during business talks. Outside, the weather was warm and bright, with sunlight spilling onto the sidewalks. Monique walked to her car with careful steps, making sure she didn't trip on her way out. As she drove toward the quiet cafe Oliver had chosen, her thoughts raced. What would they talk about? Would he still be the same calm, kind man she had met at the mall? Or would this lunch feel different now that there was no missing child in the picture? When she arrived at the cafe, she saw Oliver already sitting at a table on the patio. He stood up when he saw her and smiled warmly. Today he wore a simple, button-down shirt and no tie. He looked far less formal than the man in the navy suit she had seen the day before. It made him seem more down-to-earth, and Monique instantly felt more at ease. "I'm glad you came," he said, pulling out a chair for her. "Thank you for inviting me," she replied as she sat down. "This is a lovely place." "It's quiet," Oliver said. "I figured we could talk without too much noise." A waiter came by and took their orders. Monique chose a garden salad with grilled chicken, and Oliver picked a bowl of soup and a sandwich. After the waiter left, there was a short silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was peaceful, like both were comfortable enough not to rush. "I meant it yesterday," Oliver began, "when I said I wanted to learn more about you, what you do, what you care about." Monique smiled. "Well," she began, folding her hands, "I work part-time at the boutique, but my heart is really in social work. I spend most evenings volunteering at the community center. We run programs for kids, help single parents find support, and offer after-school activities." Oliver leaned forward with interest. "That's incredible," he said. "What made you choose that path?" Monique took a breath. "I was raised by a single mother. She worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table. I used to stay at the same community center when I was younger. It gave me a safe place to be. I always told myself that when I grew up, I'd give back." "That kind of dedication is rare," Oliver said. "And powerful." Monique shrugged gently. "I just do what I can. The truth is, we need more funding. Sometimes we don't have enough supplies or snacks for the kids, but we do our best." Oliver was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Do you think I could visit sometime? I'd like to see it for myself." Monique's eyes widened. "You'd really want to come?" "Of course," Oliver replied. "I think people with resources should see the places that matter, not just write checks from far away. If we're going to help, we should understand." Their food arrived then, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. They laughed about how picky kids could be with snacks, and Monique told a funny story about a little boy who tried to trade crayons for cookies. Oliver shared that his son Marcus loved dinosaurs and wanted to be a paleontologist. They talked, like old friends, and Monique began to forget all about the nervous feelings she had that morning. After lunch, Oliver asked if she would walk with him through a nearby park. The sun filtered through the trees and families played on the grass while joggers passed by on winding paths. They walked slowly, talking about how even small kindnesses could change someone's day. "You didn't have to stop for Marcus," Oliver said after a while. "Many people might have walked by assuming someone else would help." Monique shook her head. "That little boy was scared. I just did what I hoped someone would have done for me, or for any child." "That's the kind of thinking we need more of," Oliver said. "Not just in emergencies, but every day." As they reached the edge of the park, he turned to face her. "Monique," he said, "I want to do more than just say thank you. I want to support the work you're doing. Would you allow me to donate to your community center, and maybe even help build a scholarship fund for the kids there?" Monique was taken aback. "That's incredibly generous," she said, her voice soft with surprise. "It's the least I can do," Oliver replied. "You helped my son. You gave him safety and comfort. That moment changed something in me. I want to help others feel that same sense of hope." Monique blinked back sudden emotion. She had never imagined that helping one child would lead to something so much bigger. Later that evening, back in her small apartment, Monique sat with a notebook in her lap. She had already called the center director to share the news. There were tears, laughter, and a promise to meet with Oliver soon. As the sky turned orange outside her window, Monique scribbled plans, ideas for new reading corners, healthy snacks, school supplies, and art classes. For the first time in months, she let herself dream a little bigger. Across town, Oliver sat beside his son Marcus, reading a bedtime story about a brave little explorer. Marcus, eyes half closed, whispered, "Dad, remember the lady who helped me?" Oliver smiled. "I do, buddy. She's very special. Can we see her again?" Marcus asked sleepily. Oliver brushed his son's hair back and whispered, "I think we'll see her many times." From a single moment in a crowded mall, when one kind woman reached out to a scared little boy, an unexpected connection had grown. It brought together different worlds, one of wealth and power, the other of service and heart. And though no one had planned it, something lasting had begun. Monique didn't see herself as a hero. She saw herself as someone who cared. But that care had reached across paths and opened a door, not just for one child, but for many. And in the days to come, lives would be changed, Not because of a headline, not because of money, but because someone chose to stop and help. And that simple act had made all the difference.